Hello, hello, everyone. I am here with Eileen March, and I am so excited for everybody to hear from you, Eileen. And what I think is really cool is Eileen and I created a friendship over 10 years ago when we were both working for the same restaurant, doing hospitality. I swear that is like if I had to do any other business outside of online business, I just loved serving, and it was so fun because I got to meet so many cool people, you being one of them. And it's just so cool that we had this time together in Calgary, and now we've been able to spend like the last year together, which has been really awesome, more than a year. So, Eileen, why don't you share with everybody what is the business that you've built that you're currently in, and why is it that you love bringing this work to the world?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And yes, I love our story of meeting and just kind of staying in touch, not really directly, but that always like, oh, what's Nicole up to now? And then it
Hmm.
finally landed that it brought us back together and here we are.
I know, so
Um,
good.
yeah. So I am a spiritual life coach and an energy healer and a slow living witch. Those are
Mm.
my current titles. I left a career in midwifery to pursue this passion. And my business is called My Luminous Life, which the name came in for me because I really want to help women find that joy, that luminous quality, that magic that life has. And I primarily work by bringing my clients offerings around the season. So a lot of seasonal living pieces, holding women's
Mm.
circles, tuning in to their bodies, to the earth. I often speak about helping women find their way home to themselves or to their bodies and to the earth, tapping into intuition. And in a lot of ways, it's starting to be obvious that it's a lot to do with healing that witch wound, which shows up as
Mm.
people pleasing, which shows up as perfectionism, shows up as fear of visibility. And so, weaving all these kind of ends together in my offerings has been really, really fun. And stepping into this identity as a witch as well has been really, really fun along the way.
Okay. First of all, my thoughts on this are it's kind of like how realtors will never run out of work because there will always be houses for sale, and there will always be kids for teachers to need to teach, and nurses to bring babies into the world, and all these sorts of things. And there are always going to be humans out there who are struggling with people pleasing, perfectionism, all these sorts of things. So I suppose the really like highlight to this is you're always going to have business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's really the world that exists where no women struggle with people pleasing is not likely to be in my lifetime, though I hope to move us a step towards that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I can say personally, I've not worked with everybody who works with us, and I did have a healing session with you, and I talked about it a lot. This was back in May, April, end
Yes.
of April, May.
Yeah.
And I was really needing some energetic cords cut from people I really care about. And I was like, how do I continue to care for these people but not feel so attached to what they have going on in their life and feeling like all consuming, my thoughts were all consuming about their lives. And so how do I make that happen? And you were like, well, that's literally what I do. And I had a session with you via Zoom because obviously we're in two different provinces. And I couldn't believe how felt the experience was, like how much I felt it. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, over Zoom, this is legit. This really worked because I'd only ever had in-person Reiki or in-person like access bars, I think it's called, like where it's like different body experiences, but
Mhm.
never via energy, like via time and space. And you did that. And it was just as monumental, if not more profound, than like an on the table practice. So, what is that? Like, what are you doing that you're able to support people energetically, even though you're not in their maybe like physical energetic field?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because it reminds me of the story that I often tell of the first time I ever practiced energy healing. I was
Mm.
doing a year-long training here in Calgary, but it was COVID, so we couldn't gather in person even though everyone was in Calgary. And I remember sitting down after the first kind of day of teaching and my mentor being like, okay, now you're going to practice on each other. And sitting there being like, I'm making shit up in my head. I don't know what's going on. And then finished this little healing. And before I spoke about what I had felt or done, the woman I was practicing on, she told me what she had felt. And like, it was like a cartoon. My jaw hit the floor. I was like, this is
Wow.
what is going on? And so it was really powerful for me, I think, to have my first experiences be that way because it really showed me that our energetic bodies don't exist like in a material place, right? They're not in this physical location. They can be accessed.
Mm.
And so when I work with people over Zoom, that's what I do. I drop in and go and meet their energetic body. So I feel as though I am in their presence and able to work directly on them and their energetic body, but I'm not actually physically in the same space.
Yeah, and that was just it. It was so felt. Okay,
Mhm.
so you do, like you said, you're a spiritual coach, you're intuitive, you're a slow living witch. There's like, let's say those are titles
Hmm.
for people who are listening, and maybe because the intention is that this goes on the podcast, this goes on our YouTube, this goes on social. There's going to be lots of people who've not yet heard of you before or have heard from you. So, what does that look like in a day-to-day experience with you? Towards the end, we're going to say where can people find you and how and links and those sorts of things. But what does your work with women look like? Is it coaching? Is it courses? What does that look like?
It's a variety. My core offering is a 12-week one-on-one coaching and healing experience, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are coaching sessions, there are also healing sessions. There's access to me in between. In the coaching world, Voxer and WhatsApp are really popular, so I have that space as extra support and touch points in between those sessions. And anybody who's working with me in that capacity also has access and will be invited into my Wheel of the Year ceremonies. And so there's an 8 celebration Wheel of the Year calendar. It's a Celtic calendar or a Wiccan calendar. And I hold women's circles for each of those ceremonies. And I hold those in person if you're in Calgary, and I hold them online if you're not. And so any client that's working with me gets an automatic invited to those. And for people who are like, oh, like I don't want to dive right into 12 weeks, that's a lot. I'm not too sure. I am running a 6-week course called Unleash Your Inner Witch. It's a beginner's guide to light witchcraft, and it's so fun and it's so potent. And just partway through the first iteration of it right now, but I'll be launching that again for sure in the
Mm-hmm.
near future. And we have a
Yeah.
podcast. You
Yes,
can listen to me on
I
the
was
podcast.
waiting for that. I'm like, okay, can we talk
Can we
about
talk about the
how
podcast?
effing fire the podcast is? So for people listening, my perspective is I'm in my office right now and I'm squirrely all the time. I need to move things around and things need to have a different space. And so this past Friday, I was like, today's the day. September's coming to an end. I'm moving my office all around. I need to adjust everything. I need to do my whiteboard. I need to change all the bookshelves. And then I thought, and typically I will either listen to an Audible or like a playlist that gets me fired up. But I was like, oh my gosh, Eileen and Ellie just launched their podcast. I'm going to listen to that. And I was so in the zone. I thought I was in the room with you two. I was like, yes, doing my whiteboard, messaging you two like crazy. Like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I love this. I love this. So
Yeah.
tell us all about the podcast. How did that come to be? Why are you loving doing this?
Yeah, so it's called the Woo Curious Podcast, and the title came as part of like a download during the My Aligned Purpose retreat. Actually, it came as a
Mhm.
like free masterclass workshop title, and then it's just that kind of combo of words has really struck a chord for who am I and Ellie as well speaking to, and it's people who are intrigued. They're like, "Ooh, tarot, but like what's the difference between tarot and oracle?" Or like, "How do I
Mm,
use my deck?" Or people who are like, "Yeah, energy healing sounds cool, but like I might not want my partner to know that I'm doing it because they might think I'm crazy." Or what the heck is cyclical living? Like, what do you mean when you say that, Eileen? And so it's that kind of curious space that a lot of people are in before they step fully into a more spiritual life. That's where I was a few years back, like a atheist scientist. brain entirely. That
Mm.
shift. So I'm that for me is what drew me to do the podcast. And I know that Ellie, she's in temple training to be a priestess. And so she's a few more steps down the witchy path than I am, but we just started talking about our shared interests, and it was very apparent that we needed to talk more and that people might be interested in what we had to say. So we launched the Woo Curious podcast last week, and there's some more collaborations that are coming down the tubes for sure.
Oh, I can't wait. But yeah, this is so good. I and I truly wouldn't say this if I didn't mean it. I wouldn't say like, "Oh, I loved this podcast and I can't wait to listen to it again." I can't wait every week now to get the episodes. It's like, and I find I'm pretty myself personally, I'm pretty picky with podcasts. I want to hear something that I haven't already heard. I don't want to
Mhm.
hear the same thing over and over again. And that's what I really appreciated about listening to you two was I feel like I got to know you two so much better, like in such a deeper way. And I feel like I've spent a year with you two. Like I felt like I knew you pretty intimately, but listening to your podcast, this is where for anybody who's listening and you're thinking about building a business, the first thing is know, love, trust. And a way to know, love, trust you two is definitely through the podcast because you're being so vulnerable and authentic in it.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
feels really good to have that platform to be like, "Oh, I'm not just, like, speaking this into an Instagram story that disappears after 24 hou hours, feeling like everyone's seen it and heard it." It's a bit of a more, like, connection-based platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, can I just ask, can you hear my dog barking?
No.
Okay, great. He's losing his mind out there. All right, so we're going to come back to wherever you find this, the link to Eileen's website will be there, her Instagram, the podcast, all of that will be there. So if you're listening and wondering how do you get in touch with Eileen, don't worry, we're going to make it really easy. I would love to switch gears a little bit and hear about your experience this past year being a part of Platinum Experience. And so, kind of open-ended question, but what would you say has been your biggest or your most favorite takeaway about being in this program or a part of this community?
How do I pick one? It's been I don't know how I would have done this year without it, I think is
Mm,
the easiest way to sum it up. The community aspect for sure at the as like, at the top of that pile, that, like, knowledge that you're not alone because entrepreneurship is lonely and it's
mhm,
hard.
mhm,
And, it's also amazing and rewarding. But without that kind of support and other people who are in the arena, I love that Brene Brown um,
mhm,
metaphor or analogy for what it's like. I don't know that I would have lasted, quite
mm,
frankly. I really love like the people that you and Kayla attract are so wonderful. All the humans inside. Like I have so many new friends because of it and real like deep
true
we message
friends.
each other. True friends. Yeah, for sure.
Mm,
And like the resources are amazing, but I'm gonna be one of those people who's like, well, I mean, I haven't engaged with a lot of the resources that are there inside of the like platinum portal. But I know they're there and I do reference them from time to time when I need them.
mm.
But it's just, yeah, that continual support, the love, the community, and the motivation and that feeling of connection. Like I'm not doing this alone. There's people there rooting me on. They've got my back, and vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, when you say the people that Kayla and I attract into this community are amazing. And it's like, yeah, you are one of those. You make up that, right? It's so true. The community is, I was saying to somebody earlier, there's never been an air of my perspective of competition or me against you. It's always, even if you're a coach and they're a coach, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, how could we collaborate? How can we support one another? I feel like that is the vibe, and that's so important to us to keep that the vibe. Out of all of the live types of calls that we have together weekly, so we do Q&As, we do mindset calls, we do mini masterminds, we do our vortexing, and we do the accelerators. What would be your favorite of those and why?
My personal favorite are the accelerators because they combine vortex, which I love. I love the vortex aspect. It's something so like magic about getting onto a call and all just being on Zoom doing your own thing. My partner's always like, what are you doing? Why are you on a screen with a bunch of other people silently doing separate things? But it's powerful. It's
Mm,
such an amazing time. And like to have that as the second half of those accelerator days after doing the mindset work and the planning and the like getting that really tangible support from you and Kayla and the insights and learning what you're learning, because you're always sharing with us anything new you're learning. Yeah,
mhm,
they're my favorite part for sure.
mm. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. One last question would be for the woman who is sitting on the fence and she's like, I've been watching this program. I think I want to join. I'm unsure. It's a year-long investment. That's a long time. It's a larger financial investment. Maybe I've never invested that much before. What would you say, like maybe even speaking to yourself a year ago? Like, what would you say to the person who's on the fence about this program?
Get off the fence on our side. But quite honestly, I really struggled to make the decision last year. I knew I wanted to be in. I knew 100%. I'd already been in the larger community. I'd attended the retreat the year before, and I knew it's what I wanted, but I was terrified of the investment for sure. And I don't regret it for a second. It's worth every penny. It's one of those things where we struggle to invest in ourselves. We struggle to invest in our businesses until our businesses are making money. But as I said, like, I don't think I would still be doing this if I hadn't had the support. So
Mm,
you won't regret it, which sounds cliche, but
mm.
you just won't. Like, I can't imagine not doing it.
Mm, I can't imagine not having the Woo Curious podcast in existence and you stepping into unleashing your inner witch and like those things not being created.
Yeah. Yeah, neither can I. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I haven't come that far. I'm still in these early stages. And then I think about this time last year, I was gearing up, or I was maybe Restmas was just a brainchild, maybe not even. And then I was thinking about how much of a different place I was in. Restmas is coming back, but
Rasmus was the fucking bomb. So if people were not a part of that, you need to, yes, we're dropping the F bombs here and you need to get on the list for Rasmus because the meditations, oh, so good.
Coming soon to a mailing list near you.
Yeah.
it's, it's coming back, but it's gonna be witchier than it was last time for sure.
Yeah, because you are learning more and more about who you are and you're being more and more of who you are. I think that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your take on platinum. The people that are listening, that are watching, wherever they might be finding this, and if they're like, oh, okay, I'm curious, I'm in the witch closet, I'm in the, woo closet, and I want to come out a little bit, and you can help them and they can listen from you and learn from you and work with you. Where are all the places that we should link people to and send them to? And do you have anything upcoming? Because this will be out into the world right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so the Woo Curious podcast is definitely one. And we have an Instagram, the .woo curious .podcast. There's not going to be a lot of posts on there, but our links are on there.
Okay,
And
awesome.
yeah, so that's a fun one for sure. I hang out on Instagram, so it's a great place to connect with me. And there's links in my bio to go to my website. If you want to find out which kind of witch you are, you head over to my website, myluminouslife.ca, and the pop-up will prompt you to put your email address in and hop on my mailing list and find out which witch you are, if that's something that intrigues you. And then my next round of Unleash Your Inner Witch will be starting mid-November, so keeping eyes peeled for that. And in the meantime, I do have space for a couple of women one-on-one if you're feeling the call, if you're ready to step in and do some of that deeper inner work and that healing piece. I have space available and I offer free curiosity calls, so happy to hop on a call with anybody who is interested.
So good. I cannot stress it enough. Just go do some one-to-one work with Eileen, listen to the podcast, get on the mailing list, stay in her world. I'll make sure that everything is linked really easy for people to click on. When you reach out to Eileen, if you've never heard of her before, if this is your first time, let her know that you found her from this talk,
Mhm.
and go say hello and get into her world. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and chatting today. I love sharing about other people's businesses, and I love hearing somebody else's perspective of being in the business that we've created. Like, obviously I'm going to be like, I love platinum, but it's nice to hear it from somebody who's in it.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you too. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Eileen. Thanks everybody for listening, and go click the links wherever you find this and connect with Eileen.